Okay, so we're going to continue reading, and Somber's. I don't know how many chapters she's going to read today, but Somber's going to four. And the thing about the Riddle book is it's got a lot of short chapters, and I think it's one of the good books that you give to many Christians, those that are sitting on the fence, those that are just learning Torah, those who come up to you and say no one can know the day or the hour because they don't know what that means. Um, I think it's a good book for them. And I'm glad that Sombers wanted to read it here. If I did it, you would all say Joe's just blowing his own horn. So, but I do think it's a good book. So, Somber, take it away.
Okay. I hope my internet is stable because it keeps dropping out. Okay, so I'm going to have Shauna and Shane and Elias read along with me today. We're going to read chapter 4, 5, 6, and 7. Chapter 4 is called Few Are Chosen. Why is Yeshua depicting spiritual truth in a manner that we do not understand? Yeshua explains the answer to this in the wedding parable in the Gospel of Matthew.
And again, Yeshua spoke to them in parables, saying, "The kingdom of heaven may be compared to a king who gave a wedding feast for his son. And he sent his servants to call those who were invited to the wedding feast, but they would not come. Again, he sent other servants, saying, 'Tell those who are invited, see, I have prepared my dinner. My oxen and my fat calves have been slaughtered, and everything is ready. Come to the wedding feast.' But they paid no attention and went off, one to his farm, another to his business, while the rest seized his servants, treated them shamefully, and killed them. The king was angry, and he sent his troops and destroyed those murderers and burned their cities." Matthew 22, 1 through 7.
Then he said to his servants, "The wedding feast is ready, but those invited were not worthy. Go therefore to the main roads and invite to the wedding feast as many as you find." And those servants went out into the roads and gathered all whom they found, both bad and good. So the wedding hall was filled with guests. But when the king came in to look at the guests, he saw there was a man who had no wedding garment. And he said to him, "Friend, how did you get in here without a wedding garment?" And he was speechless. Then the king said to the attendants, "Bind him hand and foot and cast him into the outer darkness. In that place there will be weeping and gnashing of teeth. For many are called, but few are chosen." Matthew 22, 8 through 14.
Right there, at the very end, you are told, "For many are called, but few are chosen." Now read what Yeshua says in the Gospel of John.
Greater love has no one than this, that someone lay down his life for his friends. You are my friends if you do what I command you. No longer do I call you servants, for the servant does not know what his master is doing, but I have called you friends. For all that I have heard does not know what his master is doing. For all that I have heard from my Father I have made known to you. But I have called you friends.
No.
You did not choose me, but I choose you, and from my Father I have made known to you. But I choose you and appointed you, that you should go and bear fruit, that your fruit should abide. So whatever you ask the Father in my name, he may give it to you. These things I command you, so that you will love one another. John 15, 13 to 17.
Did you catch it?
"You are my friends if you do what I command you." John 15, 14.
And he also said,
"You did not choose me, but I choose you." John 15, 16.
It is nothing short of mind-numbing to suddenly be hit with the realization that Yeshua did not speak in order to illuminate the masses. He was calling upon the chosen few, that is, those who had ears to hear and eyes to see, and teaching only them at this time.
Those whose intellect the God of this world has blinded, because they do not believe, lest the light of the gospel of the glory of the Messiah, who is the image of God, should dawn upon them. 2 Corinthians 4:4, the Aramaic Bible in the plain English.
It's no different today. Many are still being called, but only a few are actually being chosen. But you do get to choose if you will be one of the chosen or not, but only if you obey the words Yeshua said, and if you do what I command you. Does it still sound like Yeshua did away with his own law, especially when you take into account he only does and speaks what the Father tells him?
Yeshua spoke again to them. When you have lifted up the Son of Man, then you shall know that I am the living God, and I do nothing for my own pleasure, but just as my Father has taught me, so I am speaking. John 18:28. Aramaic Bible in plain English.
But the world may but the world may know that I love the Father, and as the Father has given me commandment, even so I do. Arise, let us go away from here. John 14:31.
Chapter 5. The disciples did not understand. It was only after his resurrection that Yeshua would speak more plainly to his disciples. Before that, as you have read in the previous chapter, not even they understood the full import of what they were being told.
I have said these things to you in figures of speech. The hour is coming when I will no longer speak to you in figures of speech, but will tell you plainly about the Father. John 16:25.
If you know where to look, you can find repeated instances of how the disciples did not have a firm grasp on those things Yeshua was saying.
And they began discussing with one another the fact that they had no bread. And Jesus, aware of this, said to them, Why are you discussing the facts that you have no bread? Do you not yet perceive or understand? Are your hearts hardened? Having eyes, do you not see? And having ears, do you not hear? And do you not remember when I broke the 5 loaves for the 5,000? How many baskets full of broken pieces did you take up? They said to him, 12. And the 7 for the 4,000, how many baskets full of broken pieces did you take up? And they said to him, 7. And he said to them, Do you not yet understand? Mark 8:16-21.
And they went on from there and passed through Galilee, and he did not want anyone to know, for he was teaching his disciples, saying to them, The Son of Man is going to be delivered into the hands of men, and they will kill him. And when he is killed, after 3 days he will rise. But they did not understand the saying, and were afraid to ask him. Mark 9:30-32.
But while they were all marveling at everything he was doing, Jesus said to his disciples, Let these words sink into your ears. The Son of Man is about to be delivered into the hands of men. But they did not understand this saying, and it was concealed from them, so that they might not perceive it. And they were afraid to ask him about this saying. Luke 9:43-45.
It was only after the resurrection that the 12 disciples began to understand all of these riddles and parables of Yeshua. Elias?
The next day the large crowd that had come to the feast heard that Jesus was coming to Jerusalem. So they took branches of palm trees and went out to meet him, crying out, Hosanna! Blessed is he who comes out in the name of the Lord, even the King of Israel. And Jesus found a young donkey and sat on it, just as it is written, Fear not, daughter of Zion. Behold, your king is coming, sitting on a donkey's colt. John 12:12.
His disciples did not understand these things at first, but when Yeshua was glorified, they suddenly were quickened with regard to all of these things that had been written about him and done unto him.
And taking the 12, he said to them, See, we are going to Jerusalem, and everything that is written about the Son of Man by the prophets will be accomplished. For he will be delivered over to the Gentiles and will be mocked and shamefully treated and spit upon. And after flogging him, they will kill him, and on the third day he will arise. But they understood none of this, and these words was hidden from them, and they did not know what was being said. Luke 18:31-34.
Ironically, the disciples were unable to comprehend the meaning of it, even though they were 100% convinced that he was the Messiah. They did not understand right up until the day he died, or even after he appeared to them. They did not believe the accounts of Mary or Mary Magdalene. Thomas himself doubted until he saw the nail imprints in the palms of Yeshua's hand.
Then he said to them, These are my words that I spoke to you while I was still with you, that everything written about me in the law of Moses and the prophets and the Psalms must be fulfilled. Then he opened their minds to understand the scriptures, and said to them, Thus it is written that the Christ should suffer and on the third day rise from the dead, and that repentance for the forgiveness of sins should be proclaimed in his name to all nations, beginning from Jerusalem. You are a witness of these things, and behold, I am sending the promise of my Father upon you. But stay in the city until you are clothed with power from on high. Luke 24:44-49.
Chapter 6. Who opens our eyes? Did you take note of this in the previous Gospel of Luke passage?
Then he opened their minds to understand the scriptures. Luke 24:45.
This is why I asked you to pray at the start and to do so again now. Pray this little prayer from the book of Psalms and ask for understanding and knowledge that you are going to need in order to see the truths that remain hidden even to this day.
Open my eyes that I may behold wondrous things out of your law. I am a sojourner on the earth. Hide not your commandments from me. My soul is consumed with longing for your rules at all times. You rebuke the insolent, accursed ones who wander from your commandments. Psalms 119:18-21.
If any of you lacks wisdom, let him ask God, who gives generously to all without reproach, and it will be given him. James 1:5.
My son, if you receive my words and treasure up my commandments with you, making your ear attentive to wisdom and inclining your heart to understanding. Yes, if you call out for insight and raise your voice for understanding, if you seek it like silver and search for it as if it were hidden treasures, then you will understand the fear of the Lord and find the knowledge of God. For the Lord gives wisdom, from his mouth came knowledge and understanding. He stores up sound wisdom for the upright. He is a shield to those who walk in integrity, guarding the paths of justice and watching over the way of his saints. Proverbs 2:1-8.
Then you will understand righteousness and justice and equity at every good path. For wisdom will come into your heart, and knowledge will be pleasant to your soul. Discretion will watch over you, understanding will guard you, delivering you from the way of evil, from the men of perverted speech, who forsake the paths of uprightness to walk in the ways of darkness, who rejoice in doing evil and delight in the perverseness of evil, men whose paths are crooked and who are devious in their ways. Proverbs 2:9 through 15.
Will you be one of the chosen few?
This is why I speak to them in parables, because seeing they do not see, and hearing they do not hear, nor do they understand. Matthew 13:13.
I can read it. But blessed are your eyes, for they see, and your ears, for they hear. For truly I say to you, many prophets and righteous people longed to see what you see, but did not see it, and to hear what you hear, but did not hear it. Matthew 13:16 through 17.
Once the 12 disciples were given the Holy Spirit at Pentecost, which is, again, one of the holy days of Leviticus 23, they began to preach with wisdom, insight, and understanding. Chapter 7. The time of the end. Many of the prophets did not know or understand what they were prophesying at the time. Even Daniel did not understand all that he was told, even after the angel explained it to him.
But you, Daniel, shut up the words and seal the book, until the time of the end. Many shall run to and fro, and knowledge shall increase. Then I, Daniel, looked, and behold, two others stood, one on this bank of the stream, and one on the other bank on that bank of the stream. And someone said to the man clothed in linen, who was above the waters in the stream, how long shall it be till the end of these wonders? And I heard the man clothed in linen, who was above the waters of the stream. He raised his right hand and his left hand toward the heaven, and swore by him who lives forever, that it would be far for a time, times and half a time, and that when the shuddering of the power of the holy people comes to an end, all these things would be finished. I heard, but I did not understand them. Then I said, O my Lord, what shall be the outcome of these things? He said, Go your way, Daniel, for the words are shut up and sealed until the time of the end. Many shall purify themselves and make themselves white and be refined. But the wicked shall act wickedly, and none of the wicked shall understand, but those who are wise shall understand. Daniel 12:4-10.
All of these prophecies are being revealed to those who now are learning to know God and are willing to diligently search the scriptures and keep his commandments. We are at the end of the line and the end of the age, when prophecy is, at long last, being revealed. This very book Daniel was told to shut up has now been opened.
I'm not sure. Is it me or is it Shane? Okay. And he said, Go, Daniel, for the words are closed up and sealed until the end time. Daniel 12:9.
Let's continue.
When I, Daniel, had seen the vision, I sought to understand it, and behold, there stood before me one having the appearance of a man, and I heard a man's voice between the banks of the Eula, and it called Gabriel, Make this man understand the vision. So he came near where I stood, and when he came, I was frightened and fell on my face. But he said to me, Understand, O son of man, that the vision is for the time of the end. Daniel 8:15-17.
And even after having the vision explained to him, Daniel still did not understand about what was to happen in the end times. But the horrors he saw in his dreams made him sick
And I, Daniel, was overcome and lay sick for some days. Then I rose and went about the king's business, but I was appalled by the vision, and I did not understand it. Daniel 8:27.
And let's close now and open that up for conversation, for Midrash, discussion.
So if you're new here this week, we let you talk, ask questions, and debate some of these things. That's what this is for. And then we're going to do the Torah portion after that, and we'll do the same thing after each of those portions. So I particularly liked that we are commanded to pray for knowledge and understanding and wisdom. And that was the point that I was trying to drive home, that you're supposed to ask for these things. And when you do, Jehovah's pretty good at answering them if you seek his word, if you're going to keep his commandments. Those are two stipulations. You got to obey him. And as you obey, or the more you obey, the more clarity, the more understanding you'll be given. And then after that, wisdom develops or grows. So that's the big point that I was trying to drive home there.
And in that thing about asking, Jehovah told us, you'll no longer be a servant, you'll be my friend. Well, aren't we supposed to have conversations with our friends? Aren't we supposed to engage in that relationship dialogue back and forth? Of course we're supposed to ask him. If I don't understand Joe, I'm going to ask him a question.
So who's a friend in the Bible of Jehovah?
The ones who do his commandments.
Moses.
Abraham.
Abraham was said to be a friend. Was there anyone else?
David?
Moses.
I don't think either one of them was said to be a friend. Although Moses would qualify.
Well, then there's the disciples, especially John, my beloved.
You are no longer called what? You are called friends, right? Mm-hmm. Didn't Yeshua say that? Did we not just read that?
Yeah, we did read it.
The guy that was kicked out of heaven, he calls him a friend, which is kind of interesting.
The guy that had gnashing teeth guy?
Yeah, the gnashing teeth guy that's cast out into utter darkness.
Okay, go ahead, Eric. You got your hand up.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, I always challenge people with that one person that is in heaven without a wedding garment on. The question is, how did that person get into heaven, and why is he in heaven? And the question like I just brought up was, why does God call him friend and then bind him and cast him into outer darkness? So he asked him a question. He goes, "Where's your wedding garment?" And I'm going, the only one that I know of that has access to heaven right now, that he didn't die to clothe the wedding garment, would be Hasatan. So I'm wondering why he's calling him friend. And then if you read in Revelation, there's a certain point at which Satan is cast out of heaven to earth, and he knows that his time is short. And I think one of the reasons why he knows his time is short is because there's this wedding in heaven, and wedding and the earth are tied together. So he knows if there's a wedding in heaven, then eventually there's going to be a wedding here on earth, and he still doesn't have that wedding garment. So and listen, if someone wants to disagree with me that that's not Hasatan, I'm going, great, disagree with me. Then who is it? Give me another alternative who it is. So that was what I was going to bring up.
Eric stirring up his own pot.
That's it. I like to be in the room when I drop the anti-personnel frag and then jump out. So
it's a very interesting point. The person there, does it say that the wedding's in heaven? Is that what it says there?
Yeah, they're actually in heaven. And that's where he comes in. Basically this wedding is going on in heaven. And he comes in, and it's like, how did someone get into heaven that didn't have the proper clothing? And the only one that I can come up with is Satan, who has access to heaven right now, because he's going to accuse us. It talks about that the book of Job talks about Satan being among the sons of God, and he comes and he is coming to God, and asking, they're having this conversation about Job, and he says, "Have you considered my righteous servant Job?"
Well,
And aren't we all saying that we all want to go to heaven? What we're saying when we say that is we all want to be like this guy who's talking. But if that's like Hasatan, I don't want to be like him.
Right.
I want to
In
be at
other
the wedding
words,
feast here on earth.
right. But in other words, what's interesting about it is God doesn't treat, if that is Hasatan, and it's an assumption I've made, but if it is, he treats him with real respect. He doesn't talk down to him. He doesn't call him his enemy. He refers to him as a friend. And I'm like going, that is not how I would handle someone who has been against me for the last, now in God's eyes, it's 6 days or 7 days, but someone who's been my arch enemy and basically trying to steal the souls that I've created, I don't know if I could call him friend. That would be difficult.
Does it not also say, and I want to say Zechariah, but I'm not sure where it is, I got these wounds in the house of my friends?
Yeah. But that could be us wounding him because he decided to die naked instead of because we made ourselves naked. He could be forsaken because we won't be forsaken if we accept the sacrifice. He wore the crown of thorns because we're the ones that created those crowns of thorns. So there's a lot of things that was applied to Yeshua that because he took them on, we as believers don't have to suffer that because he took on the curse where we should have.
Yeah, and Patty says, remember that this is a parable.
But parables have spiritual truths. That's what he says. He says, I've hidden mysteries that have been before the foundation of the earth, and I speak them in parables. So these parables are teaching us something spiritually true.
But just as Joe's book is talking to us about the fact that things are hidden and we're not all going to understand, again, like I said, if we all desire to be like this fellow who's in heaven and we all want to go to heaven, well, that's not the goal. The goal isn't to go to heaven. The goal is to be the bride here on earth with him, to get to the wedding feast and to be the bride. The bride.
Well, but don't you consider, like when it says we'll meet him in the air and we'll be with him forever? Well, if Yeshua is descending to the earth, where is he going to? Is he going back to heaven or is he going to go to Jerusalem? And if it says we're going to be with him forever, isn't he accomplishing the promise that he would make? He says, I who scattered my people will gather them and bring them into the land. To me, when we're resurrected, we're all going to the land, and eventually earth will become part of the kingdom of heaven like it was before the fall. Isn't that the goal of what God's trying to do, is to renew all things to the way it was before the fall?
Yes.
So in other words, people go, well, I'm going to be resurrected. I'm going to meet him in the air. Okay, fine. You met him in the air. It doesn't say then we go to heaven. It just says we will be with him forever. Well, in my mind, when Yeshua descends with a shout, he is going to go and he is going to go to Jerusalem, and he will then rule and reign in Jerusalem. Or again, some people believe it's David. That's fine. Either way, someone of God's choosing will be ruling and reigning for 1,000-year millennial reign in Jerusalem. It says we will be where he's at. What I don't know is, will we be in the physical realm or the spiritual realm? I just don't know. I haven't been able to answer that question.
Let me get Danny in here. Go ahead, Danny.
I just want to add the part we're in, as far as those that are wearing dirty clothes. Basically, it's not wearing the correct garment. I equate that to Ezekiel 20. If you go to Ezekiel 20:33, it will actually say that they will be, all of those people that are there is going to be passing through the rod, and those that pass will be separated from the goats and the sheep. And that's what I equated to be as those. How come you're not wearing the right garment for the wedding? Well, the wedding is Hosea 2. If you go to Hosea 2, well, they were sent over to the wilderness, and I have an idea where that wilderness is if we are to heed the verse in Isaiah 46 verse 10, from which we will know the I'm not. We will know the future from what happened from the beginning. Where was the
Hosea
covenant?
4:6, Hosea 4:6, you said, or
No, Hosea 2.
Hosea 2?
Yeah.
Hosea
We're
2
in.
first.
Okay, let me go over there.
I'm
So,
just trying to follow up with what you're saying as you're saying it, and you lost me here.
oh, I'm sorry. So if you go to Hosea 2 and you go to uh,
Joe,
verse
want to bring it up?
14, starting from verse 14 up to 23.
Okay.
Okay, so
Okay, carry on, Danny. I'm just trying to keep up with what you're saying, checking your verses. I don't believe anybody.
okay, that's fine. So Hosea 2, starting from 14, if you read through that, you will find that the covenant is being given. And in the covenant, I think it's in verse 18, in that day I will cut the covenant for them with the beasts of the field and with the birds of the heavens and with the creeping things of the ground. Those are metaphors that was used in Acts 10 and 11. You remember Acts 10 and 11? Wherein Peter has a vision of the sheet, and the animals that were there are exactly what was described here. And what was the actual interpretation of Acts 10 and 11? Those that are unclean are now made clean, and those are actually Gentiles coming to the faith.
Okay.
So this is basically the covenant being given to them, and it's going to happen in the wilderness. Well, when was the Mosaic covenant was given at what place? Everybody should know it's Mount Sinai. And of course, if we are to follow the Hebraic, not the linear thinking of Greek, but the Hebraic, then we will have to think that this will happen again. The actual covenant is going to be given at the same place, like what happened in Mount Sinai. It's going to be over there also.
And it's not a new covenant, it's a renewed covenant. It's the same covenant, but we talk about it over and over and over again.
Yeah, we're in what's that covenant? That Torah will be written in your hearts and is going to be put on your head.
Mm-hmm. It will be written on hearts of flesh instead of stony hearts.
That's right.
Ella?
Okay, Eric was saying that this was in heaven, this scripture here, but I don't get that. It's a parable saying that heaven is like this king who gave this feast, this dinner. So I don't see it as being taking place in heaven at this time. It's just talking about what the king on earth did, and the same thing will happen in heaven.
Can I jump in here and just remind everyone the holy days, give you an idea of when this is going to take place?
Mm-hmm.
You know, we got Shavuot pointing to the 8th day. We got the Feast of Jubilee year pointing to the 8th day. We got Sukkot plus the 8th day. We got the 8th day being the first day, and then 7 days of unleavened bread. They're all pointing to the 8th day, which is the 8th millennium. And that takes place at the 8th, at the end of the 7th millennium. So this, we're talking here about when this wedding is going to take place. There's going to be a resurrection of the dead at Shavuot, and we expect that in 2033. But it's that to meet him in the clouds, that's not necessarily the time of the wedding. That wedding is still prophesied to take place at the end of the 7 days of Sukkot, at the start of the 8th day. So that indicates to you it's the end of the 7th millennium and the start of the 8th millennium. So, it also says in Zechariah, I believe it's Zechariah, that he's going to lead Israel through the wilderness with David leading them. This is the 3.5 years during the tribulation, and they're going to be coming from, what's the name of that place? Not Petra, but the other one. Micah 2, I forgot what it's called. So one of the things I see a lot of people doing, and I'm wondering if we're doing it here right now, is meshing all the prophecies into the tribulation, all at the end time, when they're actually not all applied there. They're spread out over the next number of years, but then over the next 1,000 years, and then at the beginning of the 8th millennium. So we got to be careful to separate them out. Look at the holy days to define when these events are going to take place, and try to apply the prophetic teachings or even the parables to those times, and then
Well,
separate them out.
That's the really important thing of the timeline, is that it does help you clarify when things are going to happen, so that you can have all these prophecies properly laid out in your brain. I mean, we still have to work them out. We still have to, study and analyze the chart. Just because you've got the chart in front of you doesn't mean you understand it. But the more you look at things and the more you understand the teaching and the message of the Leviticus 23 feasts, and understand that love letter, in a sense, what it's trying to say, and then piece it out over time. Like Danny said, it's a cycle. We do it over and over again. Why do we do it over and over again? Because it's trying to get the message across of what is going to happen. As Eric said, for God, it all happened in 6 days. Well, 7 days. And then there's the 8th day. The 8th day is when we're going to be wed with him. We're going to be reunited with him. We're going to be made one with him. And that's the beginning of eternity, right?
So the name of the place is Basra. Thank you, Mike. This is why the beginning of this book, I'm pushing, and I still push it today, that you pray and ask for knowledge. Knowledge is the first thing. That means you got to open up a book and read it. And then understanding, you got to understand what you've just read. And then wisdom, which comes from applying that, connecting the dots, understanding the meanings of the words, the deeper meanings of the words, and what those words are actually saying, not always exactly what they've been translated. So to gain this knowledge, to gain this understanding, you got to understand the holy days. What do they mean? What is the purpose of each holy day? Okay, Jesus is killed at Passover. No, that's not it at all. It's much bigger than that. The Jews still don't know why we keep trumpets or why we keep Shemini Atzeret. They've made stuff up. But to ask, you got to ask, and you got to get on your knees. You got to have those words come out of your mouth. Father, I don't understand this. Help me to understand this. Please give me the knowledge and understanding of this subject that you're talking about. I don't get it. And, humble yourself. Not everybody's an Einstein. Even Einstein got on his knees. Eric.
I just wanted to address that issue. I don't take necessarily that parable and saying that it didn't happen in a certain place, except for what Revelation 12:7 is. What I'm doing is I'm tying the two of these together. When I read Revelation 12:7, it says, "And war broke out in heaven. Michael and his angels fought with the dragon. And the dragon and his angels fought, but they did not prevail, nor was a place found for them in heaven anymore. So the great dragon was cast out, and the serpent of old, called the devil and Satan, who deceives the whole world, was cast to the earth, with his angels were cast out with him." So where do you see this occurring? Because in my mind, I see this occurring prior to the millennial reign, at the end of the 6,000 years prior to because this is a time where Satan and all the angels that follow him will be bound. Is that how you see this particular?
I see this as at the beginning of the 6th millennium. I can see it at the end of the 6th millennium. I can also see it at the end of the 7th millennium. I see it in the Leviticus 16 goat, the Azazel goat being thrown off the cliff. I see it in all those different places, teaching us how to understand that. Revelation, is it Revelation 9, talking about this thing that comes out of the pit. It's coming out of that pit that he's going to be thrown into. what's the connection? What's the pit? And for me, that pit is the Azazel Valley. And yeah, these are all the connections I get from that scripture. So, like, is it one set? Is it fit one particular place and time in history or in the future? Yes and no is my answer. And so, like, yes and no. It's, we've got different events taking place 2-3 times on these holy days. And each of these 2-3 time events, they're different, yet they're the same. And they're connected, but they're different. And to explain it is like, I can't. I just know that they're connected, but they're different.
Right. And so what I see here in my mind where I'm at right now is I believe that this is happening prior to the millennial reign, the last 1,000 years. This is when
Wait, hang
Satan,
on. Which this are we talking about here now?
the Revelation 12:7, where Satan is
Satan's
cast.
being cast out. Okay.
Right. In other words, this
That-
is also
That'll eventually come to complete
right.
fulfillment at the
Right.
end of the seventh.
Exactly. Right. And at that point, I think that's when Satan and everyone who has rejected Christ will be cast in the lake of fire. In other words, they're going to be destroyed in my mind. That's where I'm at right now.
Okay.
But I'm not saying I can't change. But then what
Hang
I
on,
did,
I've seen you change, so I know you can.
only with the help of God, that's for sure. But the point is, I take this, him being cast to earth, and I associate it with God showing up saying, where's your wedding garment? And I associate that being in heaven. And in other words, every time God judges Satan, he never says a word. He has nothing to say against the Almighty. He's smarter than that. He knows not to try and debate him. So I see this parable. Is it a parable? Absolutely. But I think parables have spiritual truths. So when Yeshua died, he didn't die to clothe the angels that made the choice to redeem them. He died to redeem us. And so basically, they've already made their choice. In the end, we'll judge them, but they've already made their choice. He didn't die to redeem the angels. Therefore, I think that's the reason why I think this is Hasatan in heaven, and there's this wedding going on in heaven. And at that point, he's cast to earth, but Revelation picks it up saying, when Satan is cast to earth, I believe one of the things he's going to look for, this is the way I think he's going to think. I could be wrong, but he basically says, if I can take out the bride, then there'll be no wedding. And I think that's why he goes after the bride of Christ.
Well, I think in that part, I think you're 100% right. He's trying,
Right.
He's taking out Israel.
Right.
Taking
But
out Judah
remember,
right
there's three, and to me, there's three. At that point in Revelation, there's going to be three separate daughters of Israel. There's going to be those that just believe in Yeshua alone. There's going to believe those that believe in just the Torah alone. But the new creation, something that is going to be new in Revelation that we haven't seen in the past, is those that are the bride, that are the church of Philadelphia or the congregation of Philadelphia, that believe both in Yeshua and the Torah, believe in both. That is going to be the bride that Satan is going to try and take out.
Well, that's exactly why we've got the parable of the 10 virgins.
Yes.
Some of them are wise and some of them are foolish.
Right.
They're all the bride. They're all sitting around waiting and expecting for their bridegroom to come.
Right.
They all are aware of who he is.
Right.
But what's the difference between the first 5 and the second 5?
Wisdom and foolishness.
Right. And at a certain point, the flame of the foolish bride is going to go out.
Well, basically, they don't have it. They just don't have that oil. And the
Well,
way I look at that,
she had oil. That's why she was there, and she was sitting around waiting.
She's
But
one
then
of one of the brides.
right? She's one of the virgins. Right. She's one of the virgins. But if you read the Hebrew, I mean the Greek, the way I read it was the foolish ones didn't have any oil, and they want to borrow some oil from the ones that are wise.
Well, I wouldn't say that because
Just stop and think about it. When you go someplace in the daytime, you don't need the oil.
Yeah,
You need
that's
the
true.
oil at nighttime.
Right. That's true.
Right? So now, if they all wake up and they don't got oil, okay, or it could be right, okay, or they run out of oil. Yeah, either way, they don't got enough. But the five foolish were still part of the bridal party
Right.
that thought they were ready.
Right. So this is what I read in Matthew 25:3. So if you guys have a different version than I do, I pulled it up. This is
I think
what
before we
it's.
get too far into that, we're going to be into that here next week when we read the next chapter.
So you don't want me to bring it up now?
No, I want you to save it.
Okay.
Go ahead,
But-
Eric. Go ahead.
But anyways, in 25:1, it says that the kingdom of heaven shall be likened to 10 virgins who took their lamps and went out to meet the bride. Now 5 of them were wise, and 5 of them were foolish. Those who were foolish took their lamps and took no oil with them. But the wise took oil in their vessels with the lamps. Now, this may be a bad English interpretation, but if someone has something different than this, bring it up. And it's like I'm just saying what I see in Matthew. It says no oil, and you brought up a point that if someone lacks wisdom, they have a right to ask God for that wisdom. But the neat thing about God's word is,
but before you move on, how do you get wisdom?
it
You don't just get it
through
by
God. To me, wisdom is the Torah.
No, but you don't even if you're writing it, you don't just get it. How do you get wisdom?
Well, you ask for
Applying
it,
the
and then you apply it to your life.
No, there's a certain pattern here. You ask for knowledge, and then you ask for understanding,
Okay.
and wisdom is given to you.
Okay.
So asking for knowledge, that requires you to do work. That
Right.
requires you to study, to be diligent, to obey,
Right.
to move your feet, keep holy the holy things, and to study. And then knowledge, like what we're doing here, our bantering back and forth, it gives knowledge to some people who don't know these things, right? But it all comes with time. It comes with investing your time.
Right.
Then you get the wisdom.
Right. But the point I'm trying to make here, which I'm not disagreeing with your point, but when you ask for wisdom, and like you said, knowledge and understanding with understanding. Okay, fine. I don't have a problem with that. But God has set it up like he has always set up things in the past, that if I believe that the law of God is done away with, am I going to ask for it? If I believe that the law of God no longer applies today, am I going to ask for it?
Of course,
He has made right.
You're already full of yourself.
Exactly. And so you're basically making yourself dumb by not asking the wisdom that comes from the only source from God.
Just call people dumb.
No, I'm just saying, I'm not calling anyone dumb. This is not
call people dumb.
I'm just saying you can make yourself dumb if you're arrogant enough to think that somehow the laws of men supersede the laws of God. You can make yourself not hear, which is dumb. So
I say it all the time, and I get, oh man.
Yeah, but there's a dumbness.
Nobody says nothing.
Yeah, but there's a dumbness where you can make yourself not hear the word of God. I don't mean like the dumb as compared to smart dumb. I'm saying you can make yourself dumb and not hear what the Ruach is trying to teach you about the laws of God. So in other words, you have done it to yourself. You've made yourself to where you cannot hear, and in not hearing, you're passing judgment on yourself, saying the laws of God. And I've heard guys say this: the laws of God are like dung. And I'm going, there's no place in the scripture that says that.
No.
But that was his opinion.
Yeah, let me get Sarkis in here.
I have two thoughts about the oil and the foolish and the wise versions.
Okay.
The oil, it could be is the foolish ones did not use a pure oil, because you can have both of them olive oil, but one it's not pure. That means there are sediments in there, there are impurities. It will run out faster because it will burn. There'll be less pure oil in there, and therefore the duration will be less on the one that's impure versus pure. The pure will last longer. Okay, that's one. And the way I look at that, I look at Leviticus 24 when it talks about Aaron to set up to put the oil in the menorah, the lamp, and it says pure oil. And that means there's no contaminants, there's no impurities. And and so then I go back and say, what's the true definition of wise and foolish? If you look at Proverbs 14, verse 1, it says, a wise woman builds her house, and a foolish one destroys her house. And if we look at the definition from the whole perspective of the book of Proverbs, what do we see? Is the foolish ones do not keep the commandments. They always try to skirt it. They don't like it. They don't keep it. They try to avoid it. And they're so simple that they mess it up. They're naive. Versus the wise ones they love the commandments of God. They love to keep them. They chase wisdom, and they want to learn and be wise. And so the definition of chapter 14:1, it's about, would the Messiah take a wise version over? I mean, would the Messiah take the foolish versions who will destroy his house? And that is where the question should be: is, wait a minute, just like the tares are growing with the wheat in the field, both of them have to grow together. But when harvest time comes, they are separated. And the wise and the foolish versions are separated when the time of the Messiah is coming. That's what to look at. And when I look at the oil, there are impurities. And when you're burning it, it builds up. Eventually, you can't put enough oil in the container because there's so much impurities in the bottom that you're not putting enough oil.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. I'm going to ask, related to because you caused me to ask a question here. Why? So we're talking about chapter 23, the holy days. Then we're talking about chapter 25, the holy years. And in between is chapter 24, which is talking about the oil, then the bread, then stoning this guy that takes God's name in vain. Why is 24 in between those two? Why is the oil and the bread in between those two? Leave out
and that's where the Matthew 22 comes in, the parable that you were reading from the chapter. And it's about the king coming in and setting up a wedding, and he sends messengers to his people. Matthew 23, I think, or 22.
What's that? Is that the bread and the oil for the wedding? Is that what you're saying?
No, what I'm saying is, if they're foolish. Okay, who would reject the messenger of a king to invitation? Man, send me one. I will come. I mean, that's something that is, first of all, it's offensive to the king to reject his invitation. And second, you're missing out on an opportunity to be honored before the king. And that is, there are issues here where honor and shame. And in that culture, if you don't understand that, you're missing out on all of that. And the honor is to be in the presence of the king. And they reject, they beat, and then some kill. I mean, what they're asking for, that's foolishness. And so when you look at that, the question becomes here, and when we're relating to Revelation 19 and 20, is history going to repeat itself? Okay. And I asked that question, and you know what? It happened in history. We have a history to prove that the Revelation 19 and 20 on a smaller scale happened.
Yeah. Okay. Danny, you had your hand up. Do you still want to say something? Or did you forget? Okay. Samsung, is that Bobby? Samsung?
Oh, that's me.
Okay. Hello?
Sorry.
I'm back.
Go ahead, Danny. Danny, go ahead. I'll give you the floor. Go ahead. You're muted. Okay, Paul, go ahead. We don't know what Danny's trying to say.
It's all right. The other thing that why they didn't have enough oil, they didn't exercise their understanding and obey the commandments as the way he said. What happened? They went out and bought. What was the day? It was a high holiday. It was an action of sin to buy on a day that was said, do not buy on this day. Do not go and make people work on this day. You can work right up until the end and all of a sudden, boom, you've not made it. Yes or no? There's a problem here because it said, God said, you shall be cut off. You shall be, not just maybe. We're looking at down the track and rearrange everything. It's a question of either there are some going to obey to the end and there are some are not. So there's another aspect of the high holidays. They're put in place for a reason, that we persevere to the end on them. We dwell in them so we understand them, how they apply to us. And then we work at them as by exercising to obey as best we can. And as someone said, well, when I get up in the morning, I have to ask to be forgiven and go through the day. And every time I do something wrong, I have to ask to be forgiven. It's keeping our mind on Yeshua. So that's where I'm sort of looking at too.
Okay, thank you. Eric, I'll give, I don't know if I want to do that, give Eric the last word before we move on, but Eric, go ahead.
Yeah, I just wanted to point out when they took those olive, the fruit of the olive tree, and they made or drew or withdrew the oil from each one of those olives. This is what I understand from the Midrash.
Hang on, who's they?
The rabbis that produced the oil for them. That wasn't me.
That was me. I've lost everybody here. Go ahead.
Well, I was just saying when they produced the menorah, this is what they say in the Midrash that or the I think it's the Targum or one of the oral traditions, that they would basically take the olive and they would poke it and they would squeeze one drop from that, and that's, in other words, the first fruits that come from each one of those olives are the oil for the menorah. So it fits that I'm sitting there going, would they just take the best and the first? Would it be the first fruit? So yeah, I mean, it fits the pattern. Whether it's true or not, I don't know. But then they would use the rest of the olive for something else, for cleaning, for fire, whatever it was used for. But the menorah, if you look at where God placed the menorah, once you walk out from the outer court and the priest walks into the first holy, what illuminates the bread, which I believe is Yeshua, the showbread that's there, what illuminates that bread, the only light that's in there, is the light produced by the oil of the menorah. So the illumination before you come into the Shekinah glory of God, if you're going into that next one, before you can approach the Shekinah glory of the Holy of Holies, you have to understand and consume the bread, the showbread, illuminated by the oil, or consuming of the oil with the bread, however you want to put it. But that oil was used as a way to illuminate that particular compartment, that area, before you went into the most holy, or the Holy of Holies. And that would illuminate your ability to eat the bread if that's what you were doing that particular day, or if they were working on the menorah.
So if I bring that back to the foolish virgins, the oil that they're lacking is their light, is their light,
their ability to apply the Torah correctly requires the direction and the revelation of the Ruach, or the Holy Spirit, or the oil. You need the oil in order for you to apply the Torah correctly. That's why he says, you shall apply my law lawfully. You shall judge justly. There is always two witnesses to God, to the Father's truth. To his truth, it is the direction of the Ruach, but the knowledge and what you receive from the word. So those two together, the word and the Ruach, allow you to approach the Father intimately. So you need both. You can't have one or just the other. You need both. You need two witnesses to approach intimacy to the Father.
Okay, thank you. And I gave Eric the last word. We're going to move on to